Welcome, everybody, to episode 12 of the Thunder Craps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, whose words speak louder than pictures, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, the first in line to get banged, Mr. Josh Haddix.
How you guys doing?
And the man who has a different kind of streak, the brown one running up his underwear, Kyle Hoagland.
I was actually hoping we would talk soon about what Rick Rude had to say, and I'm glad we started off with the first 30 seconds. What's going on, everybody?
If there's one thing I can count Rick Rude on for Rick Rude to do, it is give me a great quote to introduce you in every week, Kyle.
That dude has a weird fetish for butts or things involving the butt.
Yes, he does. But that's what we can be thankful about here in 1998. We're of course 12 episodes into Thunder now. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to enjoy the week to week. It's there's different things to look forward to. I'm starting to get invested in some of these stories.
Well, I'm glad to know that after doing 12 episodes now, you're now interested in this podcast. So that's very nice to find out now.
Well, I'm not interested in the podcast at all. I'm talking about Thunder itself.
I'm not either. Yeah,
it's as far as Thunder goes, I finally care a little bit about what's happening. Outside of the main stories, we've actually got a little bit. I find myself even invested in some of these, lower tier card wrestlers, and what. Well,
Lightning Foot, Jerry Flynn thanks you for that.
Of course, we are discussing the March 26th, 1998 edition of Thunder, and we open up. And it's Eric Bischoff in the production truck, and he's heated. He doesn't want them the production crew to show some tape that they have, and he's going on and on. They're arguing back and forth, which for what seemed like it kind of dragged a little bit. I felt like it was too much of the back and forth. They needed to cut it a little bit quicker. The production crew is going to get Doug Dillinger in there, and Dillinger is going to, of course, haul Bischoff out of there, and then they're going to air the tape. And the tape, of course, is a replay from the Nitro this past Monday. And we've got Randy Savage lying down on the ground, as is Roddy Piper. So, of course, if you guys remember from last week, Piper, there was a big announcement that was coming to Nitro, and Tony Schiavone just could not wait for it. It was a big challenge coming from Piper, and I guess it was this challenge against Savage. Anyhow, they're in the match. They're lying down there. Is where we enter in. They're both prone. And out comes Kevin Nash. He enters the ring with a baseball bat, and he's getting ready to attack Piper, which Hogan comes in, and he's stopping him. He wants him to attack Savage. And, of course, Hogan and Nash get into it a little bit. There's a little bit of a push, and that's where the tape ends. And now we get into our Thunder opening. What did you guys think of that Nitro replay before we get things in discussing what happens on Thunder itself?
Well, I was hoping at some point during the show that they would at least kind of talk about what Piper was doing on the show, because they were hyping it so much last week, what the actual challenge was. All we really got out of this was, here's a guy that if we're like in a world where all we know about wrestling is what's happening on Thunder, which I feel like that's what we're kind of doing, the three of us. That is what
our world is. Now, in fairness, I do watch the pay-per-views because I kind of want to know what the blow-off is. But as for Nitro, if it's not shown on a replay on Thunder or mentioned by commentary, I have no idea what happens.
Yeah, we're kind of going into this assuming that we have a cable package that does not have TNT but happens to have TBS. But yeah, the whole idea of Piper issuing a challenge, we don't even know what the challenge was. We know that the aftermath of is that he does fight Macho Man, which once again seems not what the person I would have thought he would have wanted to fight.
Seems like a strange challenge. Yeah. Now, I guess in fairness, and I guess we can just kind of roll into this Thunder opening here. You got the usual group. We're in Fairfax, Virginia, at George Mason University. You wouldn't know that because other than hearing Schiavone say it, because they don't show any graphic or anything. So sorry, Fairfax. But we do find out that Spring Stampede, there is a blockbuster tag team match. I mean, this is one for the ages. It is Nash and Hogan against Piper and the Giant, but it doesn't stop there. It does get better. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a bat match.
I would have liked it better if they fought in a cage of bats than what we actually get.
So to kind of bounce off of what you were talking about, Kyle, we're not sure what Piper's challenge was, but we know it's one of two things. He either challenged Hogan and Nash to a tag team bat match, or he challenged Savage to a match on Nitro. Either of those scenarios doesn't seem like a blockbuster challenge to me. I don't know about you guys.
No, you know what we should do is go back and look on Nitro and see exactly what it was.
That would be the smart thing to do.
You know?
And our podcast listeners would probably appreciate a little homework on that end, you know. But
that's when Twitter needs to come out and let us know what's going on. They need to help us out. You know what, Twitterverse, help us out, all right? We're here providing you guys with a breakdown of Thunder and all things Thunder. So if it's not on Thunder, it might as well be in Mandarin Chinese because we have no idea what else is going on. But also, once again, I agree. Tony Schiavone made this seem like last week, like this was like the announcement of all announcements. And if all it was I want to fight Macho Man, I feel like that it's probably a little short sold, even for Tony Schiavone.
I agree. But let's just move into our opening bout for the night. We've got Eddie Guerrero wrestling Chris Benoit. And psych, it's actually going to be Chavo Guerrero wrestling Chris Benoit. Eddie's going to get in there and force Chavo to wrestle his match. And then he's going to take Chavo Guerrero's TV title match later tonight. Of course, you guys remember a couple weeks ago, actually on Thunder, so this was a storyline that started with Thunder. Chavo lost to Eddie, so now he basically has to do what Eddie does, says and asks and demands. And apparently that includes Eddie being able to book his own title matches and making the changes.
Well, yeah, and then once again, like, I didn't even think Eddie had that kind of power unless maybe he spoke to someone in the back, but then didn't tell Chavo about it until like surprise on actual air. But I always love it when wrestlers can be bookers. That's always been one of my favorite TV tropes as far as professional wrestling is concerned.
You know, one wrestler who I will let it slide when he's a booker, Booker T.
Mr. T.
Yes. We are going to get our first sign of the night. It's going to say Hulk Hogan is such a fat ass, but the last S in fat ass is highlighted over, so they censored themselves. And then also has a shitty picture of Eric Cartman, which I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but there's a lot of South Park characters drawn in the crowds. South Park is hot here in '98, to say the least.
It was also hot on your wrestling website, in case you didn't remember about your own Ultimate page of pro wrestling.
Hey, dude, I was trendy. What can I say? Fairfax probably copied me on that one. As this match is getting ready to go, Rick Rude and Eric Bischoff are going to kick out the commentary team, and that's going to leave them to get on the mic and basically say what we've heard pretty much from day one of Thunder. There's no dissension amongst the NWO. Everybody's fine. It's all good. Nothing to see here. I feel like at some point this no dissension thing is becoming a bit too cliched.
Hey, what as of this point, how long has the NWO been around now?
Since '96, summer of '96.
Oh, so it's been a couple of years then.
Yes. Yeah. We're
okay. All right.
It's coming on 2 years. We're pushing to the second year mark at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It's a couple months out, but we are nearing that 2 year mark.
Okay. Cool.
We are going to see our second sign of the night. It's going to say, "Megan, will you marry me?" We saw this a lot. This guy holds this sign up a lot throughout the entire night. And I just have to note, if you're a woman, are you do you think any of our wives would have appreciated a proposal via Thunder, on a sign?
I think it's 100% safe to say Lindsay would never have seen it. So
that is
I will echo Haddix's sentiment right there.
That is a great point.
It's really good if you want to ask someone that you're dating apart from your wife. Maybe she'll see it probably more than your actual wife would see it.
Like you got a mistress who's just into wrestling. Is that what you're saying?
That might be what I'm saying.
Fair enough. As for this match, not much to say. Benoit actually kind of dominates this match. I thought it would be a little bit better. I mean, Chavo and Benoit are both great wrestlers, but Benoit just pretty much squashed Chavo for the most part. And he is going to go on to win this with the crippler crossface. I gave it 2 stars. The match was okay, but like I said, Benoit just dominated a little bit, and I thought he could have looked a little bit better than he did. What'd you guys think?
I gave it a 1 3/4 stars. The crowd was really into it, but I think for a weird reason. I think people were supposed to feel bad for Chavo. I don't know what, but Benoit was kicking the ever-living shit out of him, and the crowd just wanted more of it. They were really enjoying Chavo getting his ass handed to them. But I rated this kind of low because I thought that Bischoff and Rude being on commentary, as much as maybe Eric was talking every once in a while about the match. I mean, he does have obviously he has commentary experience. But we know why they were there, and I think they did kind of take away from the match, even just slightly. I think at best, so this might have been like a 2 1/4 if this was, actually commentated appropriately.
I gave it 2 as well. I thought it was a good opening match. I always look forward to seeing, Eddie and Chris, although Eddie didn't wrestle in this. But I really agree with Hoagie. I feel like that really took away from the match, and Eric did say some stuff from time to time, but I felt like it was really forced, almost like he was like, "Oh man, I got to say something about this match," and I don't know, it was just bad.
Yeah,
it does. I think it really took away
Bischoff
from the match.
has done play-by-play, in his career. But here it's like his character. That's not the point of them pushing themselves on there.
Yeah.
So it did kind of feel a little awkward here because you're not expecting him to, and he probably did for the sake of TV, but like he probably shouldn't have for the sake of his character and what they're trying to do.
Yeah. He did a little bit of each instead of just doing one, which it would have been bad if he didn't say anything either way. But yeah, I gave it a 2 as well.
And then if they followed this up with a Bischoff and Hogan promo, which I felt was like kind of too much back and forth or back to back with Bischoff here. But we are going to get our third sign of the night here at this point as they're coming out, and it's Kimberly, of course, Kimberly Page, and it's going to say, "Feel my bang." So we get some of Fairfax perverts in the crowd. Hogan, of course, is going to get on the microphone talking about the dissension, naturally, and he says, "You can show any footage you want. The NWO is for life." Which, to me, if Hogan felt that way, you could show any footage. Like, why is Bischoff basically saying, "Don't play that tape"? I feel like there's a little bit of discrepancy there amongst the NWO.
I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I say this every time Hogan cuts a promo on Thunder, which I feel like he cuts a promo every time he's on Thunder. I just feel like they're not that great. I feel like he kind of is scattered, and he talks about like a million different things at once instead of cutting like a precise promo. Do you guys feel like that at all, or do you guys like him?
I think it depends on the promo. I think Hogan can cut a great heel promo when he wants to, and when the topic is good. But I think the story right now is just so
it's all over the place,
convoluted or something. Yeah, like it's because like Hogan was feuding with Nash. I mean, Hogan is now kind of feuding with Nash, but like he was feuding with Savage, and Savage was feuding with Nash, and like they want to say the NWO is like that there's some inner turmoil, but he also doesn't want it, but he's also trying to fight Sting. Like, I feel like he's got too much going on where he can't focus on just one story, one person, and I think that's probably a big part of the issue.
I think also too that Hogan kind of just comes out there knowing how much time he has, and then I think other than that he just other than kind of having maybe like a rough idea of what he can talk about, he doesn't script anything really. I mean, he's like an old school wrestler where nothing's written for him. That dude just kind of goes out there and he kind of just says his thing, which once again can kind of hurt or help depending on what there is actually to talk about. But yeah, we're kind of recycling the same discussions and the same Hogan promo we've been doing now for 12 weeks. And I don't know if anyone mentioned this before, but does anyone also find it's really stupid that Bischoff took over, had some reason to take over commentary for the first match and talk about whatever you want to talk about, and then he's also on the next promo with Hogan.
I kind of opened up with that I thought it was a little bit too much Bischoff back to back there. Like I felt like it was unnecessary to if you wanted to have them have the promo, then don't have Bischoff and Rude come out in the match literally right before this, or have them do that.
Yeah, that really annoyed me with the match. That really annoyed me more with that match, knowing that. First, I was just slightly annoyed, and it kind of took away from the match. But then it even made it worse, knowing that he's just back again, and he still got his TV time to say what he wanted to say, but felt he needed to also take over the first match commentary. That just seemed like unnecessary to me.
I agree. But there is a point that for him and for Bischoff and Hogan be out here, Kevin Nash is going to come out. Of course, Hogan basically says he loves Kevin Nash like he loves himself. And Kevin's going to get on the mic and say, let's air out this dirty laundry, and says that no one's pulling his strings and does a little David Copperfield impression, apparently. But then he says a line that Hogan is a self-proclaimed leader of the NWO, but we all know the Wolfpack is the heart and soul of it. So that line there kind of says, all right, there is something going on between Nash and Hogan. Of course, Hall and Nash kind of started it, and then naturally Hogan being the big name, the third man, the whole ordeal. So I did enjoy that line. But then he's going to mention his buddy Six, and says Six can't, what's wrong with Six? Why isn't he here? Asking Hogan this, and mentioning Scott Hall. And Hogan's going to get on the mic basically and say that Scott Hall's too dangerous for TV right now, which, Kyle, you and I had a discussion offline about this. This is probably starting the period of time. Scott Hall's had some substance abuse issues. It's no secret to anybody. But he was just on Thunder like 2 weeks ago. Like, has it not been that long that we have, not seen him wrestle or be on air? So it seems a little weird that they already put the Scott Hall part in there.
And it's also weird too that like we also haven't seen what I understand. Maybe there is something we don't know more about Scott Hall, but it's not like he's been gone for a long time. But what has been gone is anything involving Scott Hall. Obviously, he couldn't help Louis Spicolli being dead. But I mean, even the Dusty thing, like I feel like that's just like that was like a thing that they did the first week that he showed up, and then that's been kind of gone. So like really, Scott Hall has kind of lost any kind of ever since he lost his match with Sting. It's been like, where's Scott Hall been?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it'd be curious to see if this is the period of time that he kind of maybe is fighting some abuse problems, and maybe he won't see him for a bit. I don't know. Hogan, of course, is going to mention Six and say he can't cut the mustard. This is a really famous line because Sean Waltman is going to debut as X-Pac this coming Monday in the time frame on Raw, and this is when he basically cuts a really good promo joining DX and calls out Hogan about, oh, Hogan, you don't think I could cut the mustard? So it's kind of funny that this sort of all set it up for Sean Waltman's big run, second.
This also lets us know that Sean Waltman watched Thunder.
Hey,
sure.
That's right. Maybe he'll listen to this podcast. And
I could never stand X-Pac. Like, I always thought he was a jobber.
I think he's one of the most underrated performers, though.
Not necessarily the wrestling.
Wrestler, yeah.
Yeah, the wrestling aside, just his gimmick and like his attitude. I don't know. Anytime he tried to talk on the mic, I would hate it.
So you would agree with the Hogan that he can't cut the mustard, huh?
Yeah, he cannot. Dude, I'm Team Hogan, dude. Team Hogan for sure.
Well, if you are Team Hogan, that means you trust him. And, of course, Hogan is going to end this promo with Nash by saying, if you got a problem with trust, I'll tag with you tonight. So it looks like there might be a Nash and Hogan team-up. We'll find out as the show continues on. But first, we've got La Parka and Prince Iaukea. Mike Tenay's back on commentary, and it took 2 minutes and 36 seconds before they mentioned to us that Prince Iaukea was bringing back the fire that he to his game that brought him the television title. And then, of course, they mentioned a couple more times that he was a former television champion, because I feel like it's the only talking point they have for Prince Iaukea. And Prince Iaukea, who apparently is on a bit of a win streak, is going to win this match with a Northern Light suplex. I gave this a 1 3/4. I thought the match was short. It wasn't very entertaining. And La Parka didn't even get a chair spot.
Yeah, I gave it a 1 3/4 too, and exactly what you said. I do. My only high spot of this is if they start to kind of push the story with him on Thunder, maybe by chance we'll bring a good storyline for him on Thunder instead of just having him wrestle random people every week. So I'm hoping that does something. But this match was not very good.
1 3/4 as well. There's really not much. You guys kind of hit everything. I went back and counted again. From bell ring to bell ring, it was 1 minute and 52 seconds. So I think you also gave credit to
from the minute his name was first mentioned and as he's walking out or something like that. I don't know.
Right. Which once again, they actually started this match, I think, right when Prince Iaukea was basically La Parka was already in the ring. And Prince Iaukea was so. Not only was this match super short, they didn't even give the proper entrances for both of these guys. So that just shows how much they had invested in this match.
Yep. And after this, we're going to Tony Schiavone interviewing Lex Luger, and he's instead of talking about Lex, Tony basically says, "Let's talk about the NWO," which I thought Lex had a good kind of.
Did you notice that even Lex kind of laughed and made fun of Tony for that? He was just like, he's like, yeah. Whatever, I guess. I guess we'll talk about it.
Yeah, he made that comment like, yeah, I'm a bit of a narcissist, which I thought which is nice. But he's like, I guess I'll talk about the NWO. That's fine. And he says, excuse his attire. Normally, I'm much more professional. I don't know. I guess he didn't wear his black jeans and blouse that we're accustomed to, Kyle.
He also didn't have his boots tied up.
That's true. He did not. But he does say, I heard Hogan and Nash are looking for a match tonight, so my buddy Sting and I accept. So, of course, our main event is going to be Hogan and Nash versus Sting and Lex Luger. I don't know about you guys, but I feel pretty good that this 12th episode, we may have a clean finish, right? Right? But before we get to that, we'll go to our next match. The Cruiserweight title is on the line as Chris Jericho is going to be defending it against Disco Inferno. Jericho is going to be coming out that the weird sideburn chops beard thing that Jericho was rocking last week. He is gone. He is shaved, but he's rocking some pink sunglasses, the Dean Malenko vest, and of course the Hoovy mask is around his neck. As for this match, Jericho's going to win with the Lion Tamer, and he is going to take Disco Inferno's headband as a victory. Because he's kind of claiming spoils from every one of his opponents. I gave it 2 1/4 stars. I thought the match was solid. The commentary team was into it, which always helps. And just overall, a good match. Hoagie, when you discuss yours, why don't you go ahead and also mention what you do not like about one of Disco Inferno's common moveset moves?
2 things. First of all, I gave it a 2 1/4 star. I thought it was kind of botchy at the start. I think there was a point where there was like a drop toe hold by Jericho, and Disco just tried as hard as he could to make sure he landed correctly. And because that it looked so staged that it looked bad, he was supposed to land kind of like on the bottom rope on his neck, and it just didn't look like that's what happened. But like I said, I can also say that Disco has definitely improved since our first couple of times that we've seen Disco wrestle in early 96 or late 95. But no one thought that Disco was going to
make a comeback.
Yeah, I don't think anyone saw any reason for him to beat Jericho, especially if it was from the Cruiserweight title, which also I'm still also on that fence of if Disco Inferno is a Cruiserweight, he must have just really quickly didn't eat a couple of Twinkies at the start.
I mean, to be fair, Jericho's pretty big for a Cruiserweight, too.
That's true, but we've always said that, Disco can look a little chunky from time to time. But anyways, what I want to talk about is this almost every match that Disco Inferno is in, he almost always does a swinging snapmare takedown, which is the silliest move to put in a move set for a guy whose finisher is the Chartbuster, aka the Stunner, because it is much more difficult of a move to be able to set somebody up and grab them from the neck from behind, or you being in front of them and snapping them over your shoulder to the ground when all you just need to do is just drop to your ass and hit him with the Chartbuster. So he does it every time he wrestles, and all I think to myself is that's not a believable move when your finisher is just a snapmare, but you just sit and you don't do anything else.
Maybe in kayfabe, he needs to do that to weaken the neck and the back of his opponent, so that way when the Chartbuster comes in, it totally finishes him off. Whereas if he hit the Chartbuster before the swinging snapmare, it wouldn't be enough, and it's only a long 2 count.
So we'll go ahead and ignore the fact that on the assumption that the snapmare is supposed to do damage to the neck, which it's not. But I get what you're trying to get at. It's all completely wrong. Anyways, 2 1/4 stars.
Haddix, what do you think about it?
I gave it 2 3/4 stars. I actually really enjoyed the match, and I have a question for you guys. Did Disco was this this gimmick Disco Inferno, was this his first time in the business, or was he around before, or what was his?
If he was around before, this was his first and mainly most prominent. They tried a couple other things. I think Disco had like an amnesia angle later on, but he's
And
still, I think, was almost always Disco.
Well, and then like in 2000 or 2001, that era, he joins like a kind of a gangster group with Conan and stuff, and he's like a different variation of Disco. Like he's hip hop Inferno or something, something to that effect. I don't remember what it is at the top of my head. But
To kind of what Hoagie said, I really thought he looked really good in this match, and I never thought he was going to win, just because Chris Jericho has the belt and all that, but I really enjoyed it. I thought he did really good. My only critique was the way he put the lion tamer on. He kind of just like walked up to him and put the lion tamer on, where I wish it would have been kind of built up a little bit more. But other than that, I really enjoyed the match.
I really enjoyed he did like a spine buster on Jericho, which I was taken very back by. Like, wow, I actually didn't look half bad.
I thought he looked really good. I really enjoyed this match. I always enjoy Chris Jericho, but Disco impressed me.
Well, we got a Disco fan over here. Good to know.
I'm a hip hop Inferno fan. Okay.
After this, we're going to get our WCW Saturday Night promo, and we got Psychosis wrestling Chris Jericho, who of course is rocking the beard that he had last week on Thunder, but not this week. So you can already tell it's a taped episode. We got Yuji Nagata versus television champion Booker T. Spoiler alert for later tonight when Booker T is defending that said title. And in the main event, we got Kevin Nash versus Rick Steiner. Shocked to see that Kevin Nash is wrestling on Saturday night. I got to be honest.
Same. Yep.
Was really surprised by that. So that's your card. Interesting, but obviously they show us too much to let us know that it's a taped episode, which is a little disappointing. After this, we're going to get Jerry Flynn versus Goldberg. They're going to let us know Goldberg's streak is at 61-0. If you guys remember, he was at 55-0 last week. Basically means he had to have wrestled every day since Thunder last week. So I don't know whether they're totally starting to pad the numbers yet or not, but I know they were notorious for doing that. It caused a lot of grief among some people. So it'd be interesting to keep a tally on these numbers every week now. Apparently these two wrestled each other recently, and Goldberg demanded a rematch because he had something to prove. Goldberg won the last match. What does he have to prove? He
squashed him. Yeah, he squashed him. I went back to watch the first Jerry Flynn match, and it is a complete and utter domination of Jerry Flynn. And for some reason, he felt like he had to go back and beat his ass some more. I don't know why.
I don't know. It's a kind of a dick move by old Billy.
But dude, this is what you call padding the stats. All right.
That's right. I will say, though, Flynn must have scouted that match, learned some things from that previous match, because he held his own in this one. We saw a lot of kind of like mat tackling, leg locks, a little bit of submission moves. Goldberg's going to kind of power out of a lot of it, but Jerry Flynn
he took a few bumps from him, though, compared to his typical, shaking it off and spearing somebody. But,
right. And this match was easily the longest Goldberg match we have seen. Watching Thunder, and eventually he's going to kind of take a couple kicks to the head, I think, and then immediately shake him off, turn around, spear out of nowhere. That's going to be the jackhammer for the 3. I gave it 2.5 stars. It's probably the best Goldberg match we've seen on Thunder. If not, it's right up there with the Mongo one we watched. I think might have been the debut episode.
I'll say that might have been week 1, yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that it was like the 0 wind-up, no-sell spear out of nowhere, I think I would have rated it just slightly higher, because I thought that was the only part I wasn't crazy about, was just how the spear was executed. But other than that, good match for Bill Goldberg and Jerry Flynn. Kudos to you for getting that out of him.
Oh, yeah, I gave it 2.25. Agree with everything you said. And maybe the reason they, demanded a rematch is because they knew Flynn would be able to get a little bit out of Goldberg. Although I guess I didn't watch. Was the first one on Thunder?
No, it wasn't one we saw. No.
Okay. I'll say I didn't think so, but yeah, I love the match. It definitely gives Goldberg some promise of actually. And I didn't watch any of his matches after this. You and I were talking about this offline, Kaiser, about him in the future or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I've never seen any of it. So to me, this is by far the best I've ever seen Goldberg wrestle. And it was really impressive.
I gave it 2 3/4. I love this match because, once again, maybe we're rating this higher, like I think Haddix mentioned, because every other match with Goldberg seems a little bit more simplified, more of a squash match. So you get what you get from Goldberg. I think this is the perfect way to show off Goldberg. There was a lot of speed involved. There wasn't almost every single thing that was done. It was either being tackled to the ground, going into a submission hold, then either breaking the hold or going to the ropes, and then immediately going into something else. There was very little. I think the only thing about it too is that I think the wrestling fans really had to kind of focus on watching the match because there really wasn't like a time to pop. Other than like a couple of power moves that Goldberg would use in order to get out of said submission holds,
right?
And it just made Goldberg look like he was bulletproof. Like every little thing that Flynn tried doing, a good move, like something that you can actually say, that's actually a very good idea to do. Because everyone keeps on saying like, well, if you're going to wrestle Goldberg, I think someone said, I think it was either Heenan or Tony said, you can't hit Goldberg because you can't damage him. And which is kind of a weird thing to say about a wrestler. Is like, if you want to beat him, you can't hit him because he's impervious to damage. So instead you work on something. You work on an arm, you work on a leg, you get him to the ground and you pound him. And so I think they took that and said, okay, let's put Flynn in, who has a mixed martial arts background. He's a former Ultimate Fighter, or whatever they called it back in 98 or 97.
Right.
But it really put Goldberg into like in a spot of not a professional wrestler, but like an actual decent shoot fighter. And you put Goldberg in a different light that just really seemed like even somebody who knows how to actually be a real fighter, like get someone to the ground and get someone to submit in a kind of a fast paced way. Even that type of person can't stop Goldberg. So I think Flynn was an awesome person to enhance Goldberg at this point.
We all agree. Kudos to Jerry Flynn for putting up a good match with Goldberg. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to get Flynn anywhere in WCW, but hey, it was a good match anyways. Our following match is going to be Kidman, who's accompanied by the entire flock, minus Raven, wrestling Psychosis. Apparently, the entire flock is pissed at Psychosis for breaking Lodi's ankle. So they're all out for revenge. Kidman actually cuts a small promo before the match starts on him. And as for this match, it was great at times and sloppy at times. And Kidman at one point is going to hit a running shooting star press off the apron to the outside. The dude can make a shooting star press look so smooth and so easy. It is amazing. Fucking love Kidman's shooting star press, which of course they're going to call the 7-year itch, as Mike Tenay lets us know. The match, though, there's a little bit of distraction in the crowd. I don't know if you guys noticed those couple fans that were talking shit to the flock the whole time. They're doing the DX suck it chops and stuff over to him. Psychosis is going to get a couple of his big moves in. Does some great guillotine leg drop at one point, but like for every good move one of them did, there was another spot where it looked like somebody slips or they kind of miss a hit, miss a spot, kind of. It just got real sloppy.
You felt like you had to reset the match a couple of times.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
The thing is, you can mess up. That's fine. I totally get it when a cruiserweight match, especially with people who have I guess high risk moves, that you mess them up. That's fine. You got to know how to transition into the next thing and not make it seem so obvious.
Right.
But the problem is there were too many big spots that if you mess them up, everyone's watching. Like I think there was one where I think Kidman was going for a power bomb, or Psychosis was going for a power bomb,
and they flipped him and kind of stumbled back and
I think Psychosis was going for like a cartwheel that he would bounce off the rope and then go back for a back elbow. He totally messed that up. Like it was just, once again, things that were like looking forward to, like, oh, cool, he's going for a cool move, and then just nothing comes of it, and you're like, wait, what was that? And then it just ends up like Kidman just like clotheslining him or kicking him, and like it just resets the whole thing. And you know that too. Like if you're kind of a savvy wrestling, a watcher of wrestling, and you see that somebody kind of messes up, the only thing you can kind of do from the other end, if you're Kidman, is just be like, just club him in the back and then reset.
Right. And they did that too many times in this match. Yep, I agree. Eventually, Kidman's going to have control of this match, but for some reason, Sick Boy's going to enter in at this point and go for a drop kick, and of course, it's going to hit Kidman instead. The funny thing about this is all three of us wanted to know why the ref was totally cool with the fact that Sick Boy interfered and it hit Kidman and nothing was called for it. I mean, that's like a DQ, right?
I've come to the conclusion, and obviously it's been a while since I watched Raw and SmackDown live, when it was on air back then. But we've seen plenty of episodes since, and I feel like this was never an issue in WWE. Like, they would cover it well. Like, if the ref missed something, it was because someone distracted them, something like that. I feel like it is just off the rails in WCW. Like, basically, they just do whatever they want for the match, and that's it. Like, there's no.
I feel like a DQ finish back in WWE, back WWF days, even now, it has to make sense. If you're going to further a story, make sure the DQ has weight to it.
Yeah,
and a lot of these disqualifications just don't have anything. Now, as far as focusing on this one in particular, the weird thing about it is I think the reason why you don't call for a disqualification is because even if Sick Boy interferes but accidentally hits the wrong person, if I was a ref, I feel like I would still give the win to Psychosis because of the fact that it's
Correct.
Sick Boy who is
right.
affiliated with Kidman. But instead of, I guess from a referee's perspective, saying, look, someone from your team tried to interfere. He screwed up. He's now out of the ring. I'm going to let it keep going because clearly Psychosis has the clear advantage that is your own person's fault. So just let it go.
The other side of this is, so Sick Boy fucks up. At this point, why doesn't more of the flock come in and help? Like, the whole group is sitting right there.
You think they want their revenge, they should all just go in.
It doesn't make any sense when they do this shit.
Needless to say, Psychosis is going to hit the guillotine leg drop here. He's going to get the 3 count. 2 stars for me. Like I said, there were some great spots. That running shooting star press is still a fantastic spot, but too much slop. So it's 2 stars for me.
I also gave 2 stars. As I'm kind of echoing what you said. It wasn't very well choreographed, mainly due to Psychosis fucking up on spots, forcing resets like we mentioned before. Once again, Kidman hits a top rope superplex, a really nice spot, something you would think that would be perfect to set up for the 7-year itch. And instead, Kidman then asks, at that point when he's in total control of the match, asks for someone from the flock to come in and help him finish him off, which once again would be a disqualification. I don't know why that's an idea. Once again, that's poor writing, and I don't know how much of this is like their responsibility to come up with the endings or what. Like, it's saying, okay, you're going to go in there and you're going to job a Psychosis, and then it's up to the wrestlers to tell the story. I don't know exactly where that gets handed off from creative and then to the wrestlers at this point. But whoever's idea it was to have Kidman be in total control and then have Kidman have Sick Boy come in and screw up the fact that he's already in the driver's seat makes no sense to me.
I gave it 2.5 stars. I think I wasn't as bothered by the botches because some of the high spots were really well, like that movement. What the heck's that move in the beginning called?
Shooting star press.
Shooting star press. Yeah, like that was insane. Like,
oh, it's ridiculous.
That, like off of the
running
side
off the
like
apron.
that. Like, oh my god, dude! That when I saw that, I was like, and it has to hurt a little bit. So like, you got to give him a little bit of credit on that. So yeah, I mean, I think I was just overly impressed by the high spots where I didn't really. Wasn't really bothered much by the botches, but a good match, solid match.
After this, we're going to get Tony Schiavone interviewing DDP. We will get our 5th sign of the night at this point. It says, "Will job for food." So overall, Fairfax, decent signs for the night. I'll give them that. There definitely been worse out there. Speaking of signs, Fairfax is huge into DDP. There are DDP signs everywhere. DDP in 98, as far as WCW goes, he is up there with the NWO, Sting, and Goldberg as the most over people in the company. The fans love him. And
I never realized he was as over. Like,
yeah.
I always thought DDP was
for
like
someone like you who never watched WCW this era, like it's probably opening your eyes a little bit just to how big.
I never realized. I thought he was like a fan favorite, and everyone loved him, like a Jericho type of thing, where people liked him a lot.
He's
but
definitely
he never
more
really,
over than Jericho, even.
Oh God,
point.
yeah! I was surprised every week when how much people love him.
He's going to get on the mic. Apparently, he had a world title match against Sting on Nitro. Sting beat him. Who knows how? Maybe one of our Twitter friends can let us know. because our lazy asses won't watch Nitro at this point. But, of course, he's going to cut the usual, I've got more respect for Sting than anybody else in the entire world because he just beat me, the usual babyface, slurp fest, if you will. But one person he does not have respect for, in fact, might be the bottom of the list of people he feels sorry for, someone he doesn't feel sorry for. That's Raven. Haddix, you agree with pretty much everything DDP's going to say here about Raven, who he calls Scott.
I became a huge fan of DDP after that. When he said, though, it's always, what about me? Well, what about you? I was like, yeah, what about you, Raven? No one gives a shit about you, dude. Like, you're horrible. I really enjoyed that DDP promo.
He loved everything about it. There is a moment, though, that DDP in this promo, he kind of stutters. As Raven, basically, the storyline goes is Raven is saying that he kind of brought DDP in and trained him and all that. And DDP's going to basically call bullshit on that. And then he's going to proceed to, stutter who actually trained him. And, Kyle, you kind of brought – you weren't sure whether he was allowed to say Jake the Snake and kind of just sort of Jake.
Yeah, it's – once again, I think the reason why, because I think that in order for him to give his his comment really any weight is I think he has to give credit to him using his full name, because he just says everybody knows it was Jake. Because if you just hear Jake, 99% of everybody out there goes, who the fuck is Jake? Jake from State Farm? It just doesn't make any sense. So he knows he kind of dug himself in a hole that he knows he really can't say or give credit to anybody who's probably, once again, Jake the Snake Roberts, the whole thing, if I remember correctly, is a licensed WWE, WWF name. And it doesn't look good if you're going to give kudos to a WWF guy. And so I think he went in there thinking that he'd be cool to say it, and I think he just realized, oh crap, I got to backpedal. Jake. So I think that's why he did it. I don't think he actually forgot. I think he just realized that shit, I was going to say Jake the Snake Roberts and give him a pop, but he knows that he's a company guy. He shouldn't do that, and kind of changed his mind live on Thunder. And before we move on, can we also just say this? Thunder has been a lot of times we kind of make fun of it as being like the Nitro recap sometimes, or we'll discuss what happened, some of the big happenings. Do you not think that a world title shot is something that they would fucking recap at some point during this goddamn show?
It would have been nice. It would have been nice to see how that match ended,
and not like in the middle, not something like in the middle of the show with DDP. Oh, by the way, we're here to talk about Raven, but oh, by the way, yeah, you had that match with Sting, right? It was so just thrown out.
And I felt like when they mentioned it, they made it sound like it was a great match too. It could have been Shivani just being Shivani, but they made it sound as they're like, oh, here comes DDP. Of course, he had that fantastic world title match with Sting on Nitro this past week. As he's coming out here, and I was like, wait, what? That seems like a big deal to me.
There should be just one, a small commentary spot, or how about when Rude and Bischoff were there, just talking about nothing during the Guerrero match? Maybe they just brought up the whole by the way, big shout out to DDP. We'll be talking to him later. He had a match for the ages against Sting, on Nitro for the world title match. We feel like, DDP is just, he's almost there. He's on his way to being, give him some credit. He's one of your big company guys, probably one of your biggest merchandise sellers. And you literally just shaft him by throwing him in the middle of the show and don't even give him the recognition that he honestly deserves this point.
I agree. He is, of course, going to leave after telling everyone that Raven's going to feel his bang. He's going to go through the crowd. A fan's going to touch him and lose his fucking mind over it. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. Of course, the fan's wearing an NWO shirt, so gotta love that. Then we'll move to our next match, which includes some NWO members, is Bryan Adams and Curt Hennig are going to be wrestling British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart. It's mentioned that apparently on Nitro, Rude and Hennig handcuffed one or both of those guys and attacked him. Of course, Bret Hart's going to come in for the save. Glad to see that Bret Hart has still not returned to Thunder.
Dude, I thought for sure he was going to be, because they said that, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's going to come out here and save him again. You know what I mean? Or something like that.
Right. Nope. Rick Rude is going to get on commentary, though, and cut heel jokes like it's 1988 here, as he basically does his usual butts and boils and boogers. And but he does mention that Curt Hennig's move was absolutely perfect, which I enjoyed the little shout out there. Bryan Adams hits a pile driver, which every time I see a pile driver happen in a match, it's just fun to see those. Like you got to call them out when you see a pile driver because you don't see them much anymore. Well, you don't see them anymore now, but you don't see them much even in this era. This match was just sloppy, though, overall, and bad. I think at one point Bryan Adams is lying on the ground and, like, grabs British Bulldog by the foot, and Bulldog, like, stumbles his way. Like, it was just really bad, just a really bad tag match. Eventually, all four of them are going to be battling in the ring. Charles Robinson starts to gain control, and at that point when he decides to throw the match out. The bell's called for. I gave it a star and 3/4. I really don't want to talk anymore about this match.
Dude, I gave this a 1. I thought this match was horrible. Like, it looked like nobody cared about the match. No one looked comfortable. It's a million botched things, like you were saying with the foot. And then, it ended, and it almost looked like they were going to the back to do something. And then, but then they didn't.
Yep, right.
Yeah, then it was just like, oh, no, they just went into the back, brawled into the back. Like, that to me, I think I sat there squinting at the screen the whole time, what's going on in this match? And then it just ends, and then they're like, oh man, they were brawling in the back when we came back, and then they just went to the next. It was horrible. I think that might have been one of the worst matches I've seen on Thunder.
Yeah, I don't know why I even gave this a 1.5 stars. Now, the more I went back and watched it again because I was like, oh, it couldn't have been that bad. Especially when I saw that you rated a 1, but I honestly agree with Haddix. I didn't even care. I didn't care about this match, and I think the only people that cared less about this match were the people in the goddamn match. There was no structure. There was no real big spots to be like, oh, that'd be cool. We got to watch Bryan Adams last week have a really kind of a fun match. I think it was against Mario Jannetty, and I think we gave Bryan Adams overall decent praise for that match. Once again, maybe that's just giving more kudos to Mario Jannetty. But Rude talking about boils and shit stains and stuff like that, that was putting on top of that, of a terrible match. And I don't know if that maybe Rude was just trying to say anything that would be more entertaining than the actual match itself. But I think you just kind of rolled this all up into one big ball of shit, and it was horrible. And yeah, the whole idea of them then wrestling after the match when two of them leave the ring. Now there's finally two people in the ring wrestling, and that's when Charles Robinson decides to call for the bell, when order has been
Classic
restored in a sense.
WCW, man.
Yeah,
seriously. Dude.
And then finally, once again, like Haddix said, they're fighting on the entrance ramp or that rampway, and then all of a sudden, it's almost like someone just said "and cut," and they all just kind of just stop and walk to the back. It was just
bad.
it was real bad. It was like they didn't know the cameras were on them, and they totally were.
Thankfully, the next match we care a little bit more about, as did the performance in the match. It's going to be for the United States title. DDP is going to be defending against Saturn, which you always got to love when DDP is defending the title against Raven at the upcoming pay-per-view. This match has the total potential of being changing hands, right? Schiavone, to his credit, tries to save it by saying something like, this would be interesting if Saturn of the Flock wins the title, because then what happens with him and Raven? Sometimes I feel like you can just have a champion in a non-title match on the card, right? But it would make actually a lot of sense.
They would do that, and they did that in WWE all the time.
Right. It would make sense, too. It's like Saturn, one of the highest members of the Flock. He's going to come in here and try to hurt DDP before his upcoming match with his leader.
Yeah.
Makes great sense. But nope, they're going to say it's the title's on the line. Kyle, I know this one spot you appreciated just as much as I did. Saturn is doing the abdominal stretch to DDP, who, of course, his ribs are all taped up, so it makes a lot of sense from that standpoint. He's continuing to stretch him, and he's grabbing the ropes for leverage. And every time Mickey J tries to look, he lets go. It's classic heel work. But, of course, finally Mickey J is going to find it, and he's going to do the double arm axe handle smash to break up his grab of the ropes, which is right up there with Earl Hebner kicking the wrestlers when they grab the ropes previously. So always got to love when the ref gets animated like that.
Yeah, good chance that's going to be the artwork for this episode.
Raven is going to come out during this match, which was a great back-and-forth match for a bit there. he's going to distract him. So I think, maybe Saturn is going to have a shot at this. Of course, with the title on the line, that's not the case. Instead, Saturn's going to jump off the top rope and take a diamond cutter out of nowhere, which was happening long before, Randy Orton ever did this. But instead of hitting the 3 count, because Saturn is dead at this point, DDP's going to race out of the ring and chase Saturn to the backstage or chase Raven to the backstage, which leaves a dead Saturn in the middle of the ring to win by count out. 2.5 stars. I didn't like the way the match finished, but overall, I enjoyed the match.
I gave it a 1 3/4, and mainly because these two, and I think I talked about this with Booker T, DDP and Saturn and Booker T, maybe one other person or something like that. They have very unorthodox move sets. Where it's very interesting to see like the creativity that they come up with when they do their moves. You really didn't get to see much of that in this match. I think that they're definitely capable of a better match. I hated I hated the idea of this match. Like we said before about that it's a U.S. title match. You had already mentioned that. It also doesn't make sense for the count out finish, especially when DDP could have he still hits the diamond cutter. He could have easily just covered Saturn for the 3 and then chased Raven right afterwards. So it just didn't make a whole lot of sense from this being your profession standpoint of like, okay, you hit the finisher. That was a cool spot. Get the pin and then go. Nobody looks good. A count out win for Saturn. What does that do for anybody?
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you guys, and I even put this in my notes that I struggled to rate this match because I thought the wrestling was really good. And if, to what you said, Kaiser, if this wasn't for the title match and anyone could win, I would have been really into it because I'm like, wow, Saturn might actually pull one over on DDP here. But he's not going to win, especially because DDP cut a promo 15 minutes ago talking about facing off with Raven. So it's like, they're not going to do that whole thing to have him just lose to Saturn on Thunder. So it's like, the match was good, but man, the writing and the build up to these things is so poor, and it really leaves you, without that enthusiasm that something could happen. So I think I would have rated it higher like you guys are if that was a potential, but I also could rate it down with Hoagie because it's like, all right, none of this even really matters. But so I just gave it a 2, went right in the middle.
I rode the fence on that one. After this, we're going to get our television title match of the night. Of course, Booker T will be defending it against Eddie Guerrero as he forced Chavo to switch their matches. But Booker T's going to come out. He's not happy. He's not raising the roof. He seems very perturbed with what happened earlier with the Guerreros. He's going to get on the mic and basically tell Chavo to be a man and say what he has to say. Eddie's going to tell him to basically stay the fuck out of family business. And they're going to... This match really doesn't happen. I mean, I guess it does. Eddie's going
he continues to talk to Chavo. Like Chavo's trying to leave the ring, and so Booker's like not focusing on Eddie, even though the bell I think is already rung.
Yeah, it did ring because then Eddie's going to hit him with the title, and for half a second,
he hits him with dick knuckles.
With the knuckles. That's right. That's what he hit him with. For half a second, you think, oh, maybe Eddie is going to win this, unless you paid attention to that WCW Saturday Night promo earlier in the night where Booker T was the champion.
Good call. I didn't even notice that.
Booker T is going to kick out at 2. Chavo's going to throw the knuckles into the ring. It's going to hit Eddie. The ref's going to see the knuckles. Chavo, in a sense, basically gets Eddie disqualified from this match. Really not going to worth rating the match. It's more talking about the story here because now there's a little animosity between Chavo and Eddie at this point, but Eddie's going to make Chavo take the knuckles, hit Booker T, and then stomp him. So Chavo continuing to be submissive to Eddie here, while you can tell he is visibly not happy about it, and Booker T suffers for the cause. Which
how does Booker T kick out of getting knocked out with brass knuckles?
Maybe because it's so early in the match. It's something like if that's like the finish to an actual match after 5 minutes, then the Dick Knuckles usually does the deed. But once again, this is Booker T has, I honest to God, probably been the most pushed wrestler right now. I would probably say he's probably been the person who's probably lost the least and has probably looked as good as anybody else. Maybe Jericho to some extent, although the first couple of Thunders, Jericho had been kind of tapping out to Benoit a couple times, but Booker T has been about as invincible as almost anybody on the show.
He's barely. I feel like he hasn't been on that much. But my point is I didn't want Booker T to lose the title. I'm just saying I feel like that could have been written a lot better than him kicking out of getting hit with brass knuckles.
Of Eddie cheating.
I do too.
Chavo getting him caught cheating. Like
yes,
I like that part
I do
of it.
too.
To your point, maybe they could have done something different. Maybe Chavo puts Booker T's leg on the rope or something like that.
Yeah. Something other than just kicking out of brass knuckles.
Maybe distracts the ref for 5 seconds, and that's just enough time to let Booker T.
Something other than kicking out of two. What's the point of having brass knuckles if people are going to kick out of it at 2? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't know. Either way,
I agree with you there. Of course, Booker T being attacked by Chavo. This leads to Benoit running out for the save, which Booker T is also not happy that Benoit helped save him. So all in all, Booker T just not in a good mood tonight. It was not good for Booker T.
It looked like he was already coming in not feeling not feeling tonight anyways. Like I said, there was no raising the roof like you said. And also, did anyone notice that Benoit looked like a river dance extra? I don't know what the hell he was wearing coming back out, but he looked like he just got done doing jazzercise.
He's wearing that hockey jersey of some sort or something. Yeah. After this, though, we're going to have Scott Norton with Buff Bagwell wrestling Rick Steiner, joined, of course, by Ted DiBiase. This is where we're going to get our 6th sign of the night. It's from what is probably a middle school, maybe junior high girl with a sign that says Beth wants buff stuff, which I feel is totally inappropriate. And we're going to see our 7th sign of the night, which is Flair equals God Woo. Woo is spelled W-O-O. So thank you, Fairfax, Virginia, for spelling woo the correct way. That's all I got to say about that.
And it only took 12 weeks.
Yes, it did. Rick Steiner, apparently the story here is Rick is still angry about Scott joining the NWO, so his goal is to take out the NWO one by one as he's trying to find the person responsible for turning Scott. So he has turned his eyes to Scott Norton this week. And this match is really just garbage all around. Scott Norton, a week after having a great match with Benoit in this one, he's going to get tossed Rick Steiner's dog collar, which apparently he whiffs trying to hit Rick with, and then he's going to back body drop of some, or like a back. What do you call that move, Kyle? Where you pick them up and drop them on their back? It's a
belly to back.
Kinda. It's not a belly to back, but he just kind of lifts him up, dropped him on his back. Whatever. Rick's going to punch him in the face twice with the dog collar on the way down. That's going to get Rick the win. We are going to find out that Scott Steiner was the shocking surprise as the man who tossed in the dog collar. Scott is going to get chased off by Rick to the back area. I give it a 1.5 stars. I think the match was terribly executed. I thought the match was bad all around. The ending was terrible. I know they're trying to push this Rick Scott thing, but outside, they didn't even do a good job of that, I didn't think. And I don't know if this is considered a hot take or not, but Rick Steiner, who is a phenomenal tag team wrestler, him and Scott for years, the Steiner brothers were a great tag team. Rick Steiner is a terrible singles wrestler. I do not enjoy him in the ring when it's just him.
Yeah, I can echo that a little bit too. I give this a 1.5 stars, and also Rick Steiner. When you're a tag wrestler for as long as you have, I feel like you're in the ring for an X amount of time. You do a couple of your tried and true methods, and you tag somebody else in. I think Scott Steiner, has always been the guy when I've watched in the past. Scott Steiner is usually the one that's getting got kind of beaten up. He's the one that's usually in the ring the longest, and then he usually will tag in Rick, who will then clear house with his normal power moves, clotheslines, his suplexes. He knows how to do things like that. But if you have to have Rick Steiner in a match and have him stay in and work with a wrestler for too long, it's going to run into problems. And I think Scott Norton runs into something similar to that, where Scott Norton, you have to have the right kind of person to put a nice match with him. Benoit was a great idea to put with him, because I think Scott Norton does wrestle better when he has a little bit of steam behind him, where he's going fast paced, because most of the matches, and I think Kaiser, you agree with me, most of the matches we see with Scott Norton is normally he goes in, looks like a mammoth, just stomps somebody for about 30
matches,
seconds
yeah.
and then power bombs and leaves. So that's usually what he does. So putting someone like Rick Steiner in with him, he can't do either. He can't up the pace, and he also is not going. He's going to get, in a sense, exposed for probably his limited actual in-ring ability, whereas someone like Benoit will show off the toolkit that Norton actually has. Once again, a 1.5 stars on this actual match.
I gave it a 2-star. I actually thought until the ending, I was enjoying the match. I thought they did decent. The ending was just complete dog shit. No pun intended with the collar, right? Wow, that was good. Damn.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, the ending was just not executed at all how I feel like they probably were like, man, this is going to be awesome. We're going to run down here and throw this collar in. But no, ending was atrocious. But I actually enjoyed when Norton and Rick were in there. And I maybe bumped it up a little bit because I love me some Buff Bagwell.
Buff was his usual entertaining self, to say the least.
Yes.
Now we're going to move to our main event. Of course, Hogan and Nash against Luger and Sting. We are going to see our 7th sign of the night, which just says Powerbomb Shivani, which I feel like, that's a little mean. Tony's just doing his job out there. In classic WCW fashion, Hogan's going to come out first. Nash is going to join him way late in the entrance, which, of course, is there dissension amongst the team as they can't walk out together. Nash is not dressed for this match, sarcastically asking for tags throughout the match. You can't tell I'm not sure whether that was just lazy on Nash's part or part of the storytelling that he just doesn't care about teaming with Hogan. So it was either genius or just accidental genius. But either way, it worked out. The match was actually started out as a decent tag match between the four of them. Sting is going to hit, Kyle, you and I both noticed this. He goes in the corner, and you get your classic 10 punch. And Sting's going to do the classic 5 count punch. What is that?
Give the people what they want. They want to count to 10. That's one of the if really there wasn't much interaction with the crowd, if you're going to get up on that middle turnbuckle and start clocking on somebody, just let the fans enjoy it and give them the 10, because nothing is more embarrassing than counting to 5, saying 6, and Sting gets off of them.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, God damn it. It's kind of like, turn down for what, and then they pause the song right at that part. It's like you totally just trolled everybody.
He did blue-balled the entire Fairfax crowd. Hogan and Nash starting to actually get a little momentum as a team here, until eventually Hogan is holding Lex. Nash is going to come in for the big boot. Lex is going to duck. It's going to hit Hogan. And after that, Sting's going to get the hot tag. There's stinger splashes going around and an interference from Macho Man Randy Savage. So 4-12. We got a dozen straight DQ finishes on Thunder for the main event. I'm just asking for one clean finish. That's all I'm asking for. I give this a 1.25 stars because I hate DQ finishes. I'm so over the main event DQ finish. I actually was enjoying the tag match up until then. Haddix, I'm going to let you talk because I would say you really disagree with me on this one.
Yeah, and so I gave this a 3, and that might be kind of one of those like overjoyed 3s, because while the last 11 DQ finishes have been horrible, I think this is how you do a DQ finish. They wrestled for a little bit. There was a great story being told. You wonder kind of what's going to happen with Nash and Hogan. Is the big boot happens? What's are they going to turn on each other now? And instead of letting that story finish by Nash attacking Hogan, then okay, Macho Man comes out. So now the story's extended. With a DQ, because again, it doesn't really matter who wins this match. It's not going to do anything for anybody. So I'm okay with this DQ finish. Now, back to what you said, we are 12 for 12, which is really, really crappy, but I am okay with this DQ finish, and I really like the story that they told. Every guy got a little bit of their stuff in. I really liked it.
Can we please get Dairy Queen to sponsor us? Because I am in such a mood for a Blizzard now that it's not even funny. But anyways, 2 stars I gave this.
DQ joke right there, guys.
Just in case we're all.
He had that written down. He's like, I'm gonna say this tonight.
I've been saving this for 12 episodes.
It's not even that. You guys said DQ finish like 40 times during this whole thing, and every single time I'm just feeling like we need to make a T-shirt with something.
Hoagie walking into a Dairy Queen, he goes up there and he orders something, and they're like, do you want sprinkles, whipped cream, anything else? No, baby, give me that DQ finish.
Give me that DQ finish. 2 stars. I did like the story that was being told. I also enjoyed the fact that at first Nash and Hogan were actually doing well as a tag team. There were some quick tags between the two of them. They both were taking advantage of Luger. Obviously until Nash hits Hogan on accident. I just wish that the DQ finish was not so blatant. I'd be better off if Macho Man's going to come down and do whatever. Why? First of all, I guess my next thing is Macho Man taking on Sting at the next pay-per-view? Is that what the next next world title match is? Because it was just weird that Macho Man came in.
I
to
thought
beat
they
on
said that
Sting.
earlier in the show that Sting was fighting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they mentioned it in the last show, and now I can't remember. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is Sting versus Macho Man for the title.
Okay, and once again, I think it's just one of those things where this is when Macho Man wanted to get the jump on Sting. Like, he waited. I've always just found it just strange when the decision for someone to come in. It's not. You think is he coming in to save his buddies? Which really at the time, even though Sting was getting the upper hand, it didn't look like he was gonna. He didn't put anybody in a finisher. Or the Scorpion Deathlock, Scorpion Death Drop. It didn't look like they were on the verge of winning. It just looked like Sting had just come in, did like 2 moves, and then here comes Macho Man. So that's what kind of got me annoyed, was that if you wanted to just go in anytime you wanted to, why not just go in right at the start? Not even have the match. Let's just have Macho Man come in and beat up on Sting and not even have a match. It was just a weird time for Macho Man to come in. Or if anything else, why not just have Macho Man try to at least help or try to interfere in a sense to make Sting lose and look bad? But instead he just runs in like as if there was no match going on. Like he just saw red and just ran down to the ring and attacked Sting for no reason. It was just a weirdly timed jump in.
I agree with you there. Of course, that is going to end the match. Afterwards, Hogan's going to attack Macho Man, and Nash is not happy that Hogan's going after Savage, so there's a little bit of arguing there. But it's weird to me because I swear Nash and Savage were just feuding recently. So now all of a sudden Nash and Savage are cool, and Nash and Hogan aren't. Hogan and Savage aren't. I don't know why all of a sudden the turn as far as Nash's feelings towards Savage and vice versa there. But here we are. The rest of the NWO is going to come out. They're going to attack Luger and Sting, including that guy who we, of course, know is the Disciple. He has apparently still not been named, or at least the commentary team doesn't know his name. The crowd is going to chuck in all kinds of sodas and garbage into the ring, and eventually Lex and Sting are going to stand strong in the ring. Somehow the entire NWO cannot handle those two. And that
seems to be a trope every week, where
really does.
The NWO can't handle 2 members of the WCW.
Yeah. And it's going to end with Nash and Hogan getting after it, and Bischoff kind of getting in between them. So really pushing the story that opened up Thunder as far as Nash and Hogan and the little dissension between them. And that's your show. What did you guys think about it?
I think I'm a little bit different than you guys here, but I actually really enjoyed this and thought it was one of the best Thunders. And I think my reason why is I'm
you
really
recognize most of the people on the show.
Well, that's one. And I really, kind of like latch onto storylines. When there's a match with no storyline, I really give 2 shits. So I feel like this episode had a lot of storyline going on throughout the whole thing. And I really enjoyed that. So I actually liked watching this whole episode. There was no parts of it that I was really like, oh God, I don't care about this. I could, So I really like that about the show. That's why I think it ranks up there as one of the best for me.
For me, I thought the match quality as a whole was a bit poor, even for Thunder. I will give credit that at least this week the stars were out, in comparative to last week where really there was nobody. But it's a weird show when you know that you have a Booker T Eddie Guerrero match that ranks basically no ranking. We basically just got screwed out of seeing what I think could have been a very, very good match just to further the storyline of Chavo and Eddie. Which once again, if there's a good payoff, I guess I'll hold judgment until then. But once again, if Goldberg is your match of the night, I feel like that's. And I know not everyone. I know that both of you might not have rated that match the highest. I did personally. That there's got to be some sort of crack in the armor of the night if Goldberg might be possibly the best match that you had for the night, especially considering who was on the show. Benoit, Guerrero, Booker T, DDP, Saturn. You would think that one of those guys is going to outshine Goldberg in this case. The NWO storyline is all over the place, like you said before, Kaiser. I don't know who's feuding with who and why all of a sudden like Macho Man just hit the reset button. I feel like no matter what, Hogan's feuding with somebody in the NWO, and now it just keeps on kind of cascading where now the focus is that I'm having an issue with Hogan, but let's forget about the fact that I've been, dogging on Macho Man for the past 10 weeks. Like, just completely just wipe that storyline out. I know what the payoff is. I'm looking forward to at least that.
Fair enough. I'll keep it short. For me, there definitely was more stars out this week, but I honestly enjoyed last week's better. I thought they had better matches last week, but this week, I'll give it. They did tell better stories. Even in the non-match with Booker T and Chavo and Eddie, there was some storyline there with Eddie and Chavo being told, and even a little bit with Benoit and Booker. Of course, you're getting the new push of the NWO dissension, but it was just kind of weird how all of a sudden Savage and Nash are on the same side, so hopefully that all kind of pans out a little bit. Makes a little more sense as we go forward. Overall, the show was solid, I thought. Like, it was not their worst, but it was not my favorite. They've definitely have made a lot worse. But that's their show. That's our show this week. If you haven't yet, go hit that subscribe button. Of course, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play. Leave us that 5-star review. If you haven't given us a follow yet on Twitter or Instagram, go do it. I know our Instagram's just starting to grow, and Twitter is at the time of this recording we are pushing 350 followers. So we really thank all of you for following us. And if you guys are listening now and haven't followed yet, go give us a follow. And you can always go to thundercraps.com for all of our social media accounts, past episodes, the whole 9 yards there. That said, Thunder took a week off, but we're not going to take a week off. Our 13th episode will be back for you all next week. So go check out the April 9th, 1998 edition of Thunder, and we'll be right back here discussing everything about it. For Josh Haddix and Kyle Hoagland, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thunder Craps Podcast.
Have a good Thursday.
We are voluptuously out of time.